maybe its most controversial arc. After Brawl came to her senses and broke free from Babibi's control, she would more or less get off scot-free. At least in the sense that she's going to torture herself more mentally than her father could physically. But what if the story took a slightly different route? What if we uncovered a few of Sunbrawl's demons in the aftermath of her becoming possessed? This is a side story of Dragon Ball Multiverse and is part 1 of an ongoing series. Support the thebritwriter, Coffeeguy, and Fuzzybuttkins, its creators, using the links below. Not sponsored, but wanted to quickly shout out Hello Cute Duck, a permanent sanctuary for domestic ducks, geese, chickens, and exotic birds in need of a home with over a decade of experience. Donations go to everything from food to security from predators. If you want to find out more, check out the link in the description. In an artificial satellite or ship somewhere in space, if we zoom in, we see a familiar emblem. In the far corner, a planet shines brighter than any other object in the cosmos, a world that may come into play a little later. Inside, Sunbrawl weeps at events prior, given her change of clothes. It's unknown how long she's been here. When she's taken back to the moment she lost control, back at the tournament, in the distance she hears her Majin self shout, "I am number 1! I control my power! I am complete!" After taking out the Grand Supreme Kai, he again remarks that he thought she aimed higher than this. While the regular Brawl tries to rush in and shout for herself not to do this. History only repeats itself yet again. The daughter of Vegito lunges at her demon, calling her a monster, who only glares back as she mocks. That's how one makes a retort to such a statement. Grabbing her, the Majin snatches her by the neck. She taunts to know where all this benevolent bravado was when a shriveled little mage commanded her to kill everyone in sight. Although the real Brawl tries to argue that she didn't have a choice. Her evil self condemns, and yet she committed herself to the order with such pride. Gohan, Piccolo, so many more. Just how much blood is still on her hands after all this time? How many people saw her true colors that day? How many still think of her as nothing more than an uncontrollable monster? Getting lost in her own misery. Another voice calls out that she is the one who submissively surrendered herself to her own evil, but she wonders who this is. It continues. She let herself submit to the worst form of herself she could possibly ever be. She's no better than a submissive Majin servant. Though she cries out she's not a Majin, she's a member of the Sun Brief family. Her father and mother appearing, the former states she was a member of their family. Every year she spends in exile draws her closer to the fate she feared, and this is what she deserves. Many visions of her most horrific actions, a new entity appears and scowls that she, a vassal to such evil, deserves a much more terrible fate. Even the Majin tries to choke out for Brawl to just run. But what is this? The masked figure questions if she didn't just hear her own dark soul. In fact, they're sure she did. It told her to run. Trying to do so as the Majin screams out in pain as she's dematerialized. The instant transmission doesn't work as the bloody floor grabs her by the ankles. Brawl curses this water, every time! But what does she mean by that? How many times has she been here? The voice breathes. Did the Majin forget how to break something like this? Or maybe she buried it. The figure reminds that Brawl may think this place is atonement for what she's done, but she will never be accepted by her family and friends again. This is forever. Prompting her to power up and scream for the vision to shut up. Blowing the liquid away. She hangs her head in defeat. The voice remains persistent and fumes that these are just defiant words betrayed by a frail mind. Pathetic. They will have their answers. Upon seeing something bubble up again. Figure appearing in front of her. Brawl barks that they invade her thoughts and twist her grief against her, who only replies with the word sin. But how dare they dictate the Saiyans' past like some kind of pretentious god? For Bra, all it took was a simple word, para papa, and she obeyed without objection. With those few syllables, she made Pan count to 2 upon seeing her father, giving our focal character all the motivation to scream to this thing that they're dead. When a possessed Fipsel springs between the pair, she hisses that they had expected a transformation. However, she still fights against it. She'll just have to send her further back into her own hell. Returning to the bright light from the beginning of the story. On a strange robotic world, the masked figure, who we'll call Lamachu, or to keep the tradition of anagramming references and puns, maybe Shula, or Talus, or Utah. Talus. Utah holds an orb and is accompanied by a figure dressed very similar to the Supreme Kai of Time, and bears a very similar appearance to that of Toa. The purple aura the orb emits seems to be having an effect on Brawl back at the spaceship. Now we know this isn't merely occurring in Brawl's mind, but is actually being enacted by an outside force. But how did this pair come to know our conflicted hero? Now at the moment some Brawl came to her senses. She repeats the word no over and over to herself, pleading for this demon to just let her go. Who would be happy to oblige. All she has to do is transform. Unless, deep down, she truly believes she's deserving of this torture. She argues that she never wanted this. They torment her with her past, but she never asked for any of this. She didn't want to kill everyone and lose everything. She didn't want to fail. But she did. And now she knows she has to live with that. Unfortunately, Talus calls all these words nothing but lies. 4 years before this, an entire world became victim to her petty rage. Can she recall in the 5 years since her exile, when she regretted it even once? Those lesser wish orbs can restore a planet, but even the Namekian ones cannot return those wiped from existence. Again contending with her adversary, she utters that she didn't. But talking over her, they state Brawl truly has a dark soul to deny what history says she did. Who knows what she said, but she stopped herself. And yet here she is, readying herself. Almost as if she felt compelled to. We arrive at the point the others reappear at the tournament. Pan asks Boo about her parents. Where are they? Sensing Mr. Satan's bloodline within her, he realizes this is the granddaughter of his dearest friend. He'd be glad to help. In fact, he believes Gohan is close by, so they should find him first. Sunbrawl then realizes Boo knew. He knew this whole time what went on in the arena, and he played everyone. But no, the figure remarks he only played Brawl. Upon seeing her potential and lack of control, he knew it would only take a little push to get her past the point of no return, and not for any deep reason or further agenda. No, it was just for a moment of entertainment to him. Transforming for a short while, she returns to normal, grabbing her chest by her heart. Again pleading to be let out of here. The masked warrior walks away as the voice of Pan can be heard searching for her father. He's not answering, but he's definitely close. Scene playing out as we remember. And this reality doing what it does. The villain wants Bra to explain what just happened back there, but she doesn't know. She just wants out of this place. But that's not happening until she transforms and stays that way. And she better hurry, unless she wants to relive the moment that Pan. Why does it matter to them? The girl beckons if they can see that she doesn't know anything. We have to ask ourselves just what kind of information this entity seeks. Continuing to hear the worried cries of her friend nearby, she just wants all of this to stop. Why won't this fiend listen to her? But they claim they are listening. That slow, foreboding beat of her heart. She can feel the struggle before a pause. And then eventually, it beats again. Or will it? How long has she had that dread while living a life unredeemed? The one she's maintained since her exile. Brawl utters that this thing is a monster, a sick and twisted creature. As Pan mutters, "Dad?" off screen. The monster whispers, "Para papa, Majin." She made that poor child count again. This recurrence is enough for our protagonist to want to be done with all of this. All the pain she's caused is her fault. She accepts that. She has this entire time. In the real world, Talus motions for the blue woman, named Time, to do it. Who only responds as you wish. Now summoning Brawl's own image to try to get whatever information they seek. Time comments that binding together what compels her, as the masked one put it, wasn't easy. She hides her trauma well, though her partner would like to know her point. She adds that they had to resort to misdirection to get her to transform. Just because she buried her pain doesn't mean she can face it. But her opposite replies that's been the plan all along. They've seen and heard all the evidence they need upon observing her. It's clear that the Majin suffers not just from the burden of regret, but a defeat she cannot reconcile herself with. At the same time, we can see the shadow of C cast behind her. What does he have to do with this? At her limit. The illusion of gas stops her. She slumps downward beaten. She mumbles, what has she done? Gohan, Piccolo, Videl. Cueing the wizard's giant glowing eyes to appear behind her. The three she mentioned materialize in front of her. But also Bulma. The voice instructs the Majin to tell her mother everything, who mentions to Brawl that she said the Kai looked at her. Even though the Saiyan knows this isn't really her mother, it's still her words. This conversation never took place in the original Dragon Ball multiverse. Come to think about it, I'm not sure Bulma was even at the tournament, so this must be sometime after Brawl returned to her universe, since the story takes place years in the future. Her mom continues. Brawl said it was telepathy, that he sent them to his universe to be safe from Brawl. Is that true? Who again claims it to be so, though not able to make eye contact even with a fake version of her mom. Shouting at her to tell her, but she can't. Inside, she knows it's not. It's as if the others are looking down upon her with disgust. This isn't the truth. And in the background, C raises his hand calmly and claims, "Mine." As Brawl finally breaks and transforms. We're taken back to the ship. Judging by a photo in her room, it appears she's joined the Galactic Patrol in an attempt to atone for her past. But what did C do to Gohan and the others? And what is Brawl seemingly lying about to everyone involving him? And what could be amiss that only Brawl and the Kaioshin looked at her funny know? A summon for comrades try to enter the room. The lock on the door engages the shield, breaking their way in. One states it's incredible. The other shouting for the shield to lower itself. Brawl grabs at her chest in pain again. She hacks out that she can't breathe. While trying to get her to the medical station, one of the patrolmen asks Ambassador Thorn to stay to the side. Naming herself as Desi, she alerts urgent care that they have an emergent transport. The world they're on disintegrating. Time mentions to Talus that she's been asking a lot of her lately. She only wants to know why. Why all of this? The people of this planet were a prosperous, good-intended species. They had no cares beyond their own well-being. They had no relevance to the interrogation of this girl. Responding, the evildoer claims that the people here abided by false virtue. That's all she needs to know. No reason to press further. Time now wants to know what the deal is with this girl. Surely what's been learned of her only confirms what was previously known. Now she appears to be dying from their actions. Something the wicked sorcerer doesn't believe. But why not? The evidence correlates with her frail history. For the sake of making her point, Time will agree that the power of the stones can remove a sense of accountability to those who the wish is made for. Regardless, they did remove her burden in the original timeline. This traces back to chapter 77 when a young Sun Brawl caused one of her first catastrophes. This also leads us to reason that this story takes place in an alternate timeline altogether than the original story, and isn't simply a what-if. In that timeline, however, a wish undid her actions as a young child. Then after the multiversal tournament, while everyone thinks her loved ones are at peace, Talus now knows that Brawl lied about the fate of them all, as well as being mentally fragmented. 5 years of Brawl knowing the truth and not admitting it to the others, living a life unredeemed, as Talus said. If they recall a reckless prior fight, Brawl grabs her chest with the same pain she's currently experiencing. Time comments that the stress of wanting to make things right, met with near death, is enough to traumatize anyone's heart. Dropping something, her counterpart claims that would be true, if not for the timing. The object begins to transform into a miniature stadium. 10 days from now, everything stops. The masked figure's role was always to help those achieve their true wish. Once that's achieved, their association ends and they move on to whoever their great creator decrees. Which'in lies the problem. A vision like their own can only be set during a monumental event. And the dawn of the 8th Age does not happen in 10 days. The villain then brings a vision of an entire galaxy, what they call a utopia of the deserving. Time can't help but resent that even when given a second chance, the mysterious warrior still persists with his plan. They should at least recall the outcome from the last time this was tried. It resulted in the deletion of 6 universes. But this time, the Fiend argues, it'll be done right. Now that they have met the means to remove the disease that taints the mortal soul. The Majin. And yet everything stops when they've come so close. Time contends maybe it only stops for Talus. The question's then raised, if Talus were to leave the Majin, would it perish in 10 days also? Looking into her staff, it's speculated that in 3 days, the Saiyan girl will arrive at the Topopolis. And while this is well into the 8th Age, Time doesn't see Talus. But killing her or not, Talus's ambition seems to cease. Perhaps they should take this as a sign to consider. Cutting her off. Time said the Majin will be at that structure in 3 days. Closing her eyes and relenting, that will be the case. So Talus demands that she take her there. The Blue Woman then states if her other believes that fighting the girl at a later date will change things, so be it. However, she herself has to know, how does Talus stand by her actions so far? And the legacy of their consequence. With these words, we're treated what appears to be a multitude of universes, or maybe timelines, only one of which is lit up in the circle pattern. And many more as we move up. Showcasing a few more scenes we've seen before, why is C so prominently featured here? Time scowls that she's not merely one of those attendants, and that taking Talus to a new timeline outside the seal would lead to duplications. She was warned of the consequences. Then there's a flash of Boo fighting the contestants. What is this creature he's so afraid of? And why does it seem to originate from Bra? The demon-like character again questions if the masked fighter stands by her actions. Who does without question? Before stating that the presence of their legacy will inspire more deserving heroes to gather when the time comes. But for now, the Topopolis, this instant. Doing as requested. Toa and Fu appear on the servant's shoulder, each sporting a number. The woman lets out a sigh and utters that, in a way, she feels sorry for Brawl given what she's set to lose. But as individuality has significance within the infinite, shaped by reality, there's always another. Whatever the outcome may be, there will be consequences. Someone will benefit from this. But Time must ask, what's the meaning behind the girl's vision of the bloody pond?
I will have your cooperation on this matter!
Back at the satellite, a patrolman, either a reimagined Legic or someone of the same race, drones that the only reason there's been no retaliation on their funding is because of Thorn. But that doesn't make him grateful for the ambassador's actions. He's just mystified more than anything. Especially if the report on his desk is correct with Brawl triggering a containment shield. Those are used to contain threats that can depressurize the entire station. Had that outburst lasted another minute, just 1 minute, the shielding would have collapsed. And unlike the mess they had at the refinery, there would have been casualties. Brawl may have worked with the gods on the Galactic Patrol's behalf once, even if they themselves didn't have a say in it, but working with a patrol directly is very different. They are not a refuge for fame seekers. Being scolded, Brawl can feel the darkness of her soul trying to claw its way back in. He continues that it's no secret he's been looking for even a poor excuse to dismiss Brawl permanently, but rules still apply. He'll listen to her account when she gets to him, but they'll hand over her medical records regardless. Protesting to Jocko, he interrupts her to hiss, "Not now!" But she thought she had a chance. As another patrolman interrupts her, Jocko is telling her as captain, and she will say as a second in command, "Not now!" After the transmission, Jocko, Desi, and a warrior of Goldo's race named Hold speak amongst each other. The demon continues to taunt Brawl. Because of her, they can see their careers just dimming away into the abyss. But where is Tasib? Oh, that's right. Good going, Fame Seeker. As Brawl comments, it wasn't about fame. We can assume her actions likely led to the demise of one of her comrades. These words caused Desi to break into a fury, demanding Brawl explain herself, only being quelled by her leader. With this, her inner Majin warns that she better be careful. They may just get Mad Woman on their medical records. That's the last thing they need, right? Though Brawl makes it clear that the two of them are not the same person. But projecting her guilt still makes them the same. Running out of the room, her Majin tells her to think. How can Thorin possibly know of something that doesn't exist? Something we're still not yet clued in on. Brawl argues that those stones had to come from somewhere. Her evil side rolling her eyes. Not from here. She needs to stop thinking about the past and be glad that everyone here except Jocko thinks they're all in a better place. Accept it and move on. But if she were to do that, the Majin herself wouldn't be here. It'd just be Brawl. In fact, she says they hunt down the pretentious god who threatened them. Or herself at least. She just cried and begged like she did with Babibi. Again causing the real Brawl to cry back to Gohan, Piccolo, and Videl. What has she done? As her negative self again tells her to stop thinking about the past. Being left with more questions than answers. What else will we uncover in this mystery surrounding Sun Bra? What exactly is she hiding from everyone that regards Gohan, Videl, Piccolo, and Z?